So with Friends, did you know right away that this was going to be something big?
We didn't know at all how big. My wife was on a plane and they showed a preview of Friends. Like we had done some little promos.
Yeah.
And she was sitting next to a young woman in her late 20s, early 30s, and they watched this promo for Friends come up.
Yeah.
This was before the show had aired. And she came off the plane and said, your show's going to be a hit. And I said, how do you know? She said, well, I was sitting next to this woman, and we turned the show on. The promo came on. And this woman said, just everyday human just said, I'm gonna like that show. That show is so my life.
Yeah.
And she knew it. She knew before we knew. And she was right.
Yo, welcome to another episode of In a Minute with Evan Lovett, coming to you live from the heart of LA. And I'm here with somebody who is feeding the stomach of LA. This is Chef Jeff Strauss, who is the chef at my favorite restaurant / bar in Los Angeles, Oi Bar in Studio City, which also happens to be my local bar. But that's not the only reason why it's my favorite. But he also runs Jeff's Table in Highland Park, which is a not just neighborhood institution, but renowned for having some of the best sandwiches in what is a sandwich city in Los Angeles. Hopefully not a sandwich city. It is a great sandwich city. But Chef Jeff Strauss, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me here. That's really fun.
Absolutely.
Love what you do, so it's fun to be a part.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And before we really dive in, I got to give a shout out to our sponsor, Arto Brick. My man Armin keeping the LA American dream alive. Third generation manufacturer and fabricator of tiles and bricks right down there in Gardena. Man, I'm really fumbling over words today, but down in Gardena, jobs, manufacturing here in LA, so important, especially in this climate. And you know what? It's not just that he manufactures these bricks and tile, but he does it for historic, important LA landmarks. We're talking about USC, Mariachi Plaza in Boyle Heights, Olvera Street. They really do a fantastic job. I was just at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes in downtown. He did all the tiling in this beautiful archway, but they do a fantastic job. So support Arto Brick. You got any renovation or any building that you're doing, and just a great LA American dream story. But we are here with another LA American dream story. So Jeff Strauss, I got to put this out here first because this is big. It's not just that you're a phenomenally growing reputationally chef here in Los Angeles because of your outstanding cuisine and the great drinks at Oi Bar, but your background is very unique. Former television writer, former television producer, including some old-time favorites. I'm going to start with the writing. Charles in Charge, for those of you who grew up in my generation.
We're going deep.
Mr. Belvedere, which was one of my favorite growing up. But listen, I think that perhaps what you are best known for is a little show some people might have heard of called Friends.
That's probably the big one, yeah.
So you were a writer and producer, correct?
I was a writer and supervising producer. My partner and I at the time were sort of the number 2 team below the show creators for the first season of the show.
I'll tell you what, number 10 team on Friends would probably even have some a lot of cachet. So number 2, not too bad, but that's pretty incredible. And I want to get into the entire journey. You know, you are what they call a transplant. I don't want to say it pejoratively because some people have some negative.
I think I've been a native now for about 35 years or something like that. But yeah,
he's an LA guy. We've had a lot of conversations, some while inebriated, some fewer while sober.
Speak for yourself. I was drunk all the time.
There you go. All right. So let's talk about this first. Born and raised in Boston, right? Correct?
Yeah, born in Boston, raised kind of in the nebulous Northeast, Boston, D.C., upstate New York, Connecticut, back to Boston for college. So yeah, circled that whole area.
Tufts University, right?
Tufts University. You did some research.
One of my close friends, Tim, is from Tufts University. So that one stood out.
Amazing.
So let's talk, while you're in the East Coast, you're in Boston, you're at Tufts University. How did even the vision of TV get into your mind? Where did that even start and come from? Simultaneously, what was your relationship with cooking and food like as you were growing up?
So my whole life I've kind of had these three things in the mix. We can get there. I've been into food since I was little. I just did a post on Instagram talking about how my parents took me to France when I was 2, and I discovered escargot, right, snails.
Yeah.
When I was there, and I like made them pull them out of the shell for me. All the whatever. So like somehow snails got into my palate. I mean, it was probably the fucking garlic butter. I have to be honest.
As a 2-year-old.
As a 2-year-old, right?
Okay.
So. And there are stories around that. The other thing is I've always loved like theater, drama, performance, story. My dad's a big storyteller. His dad's a big storyteller. So that sort of storytelling component has always been in my blood, I think. And I was a science guy too, like the details of stuff. So I wound up at Tufts because they had a veterinary school. And I thought, I'm going to be a bio major and go to vet school.
Okay.
But I've been cooking since I was whatever. I actually worked in restaurants in and around college. So if you pin me at that point in time, and I was like the art stuff, the storytelling, the English, that side of it, that was also going on at the same time. And I really described my life as this kind of like Wheel of Fortune with a triangular pointer. It could have pointed in any direction. Like I could have become a doctor or a veterinarian and cooked and gone to movies, or I could have become a chef and had pets and gone to movies, or I could have worked in movies and TV, and which is what I wound up doing. I met the guy who was my writing partner for many years, Jeff Greenstein. Okay. He went to Tufts to be an engineer, but he also, like, he started taking a film class. He was a buddy of mine freshman year. Yeah. And he's like, I'm taking this incredible film class. And by the end of our freshman year, we're both like, this science shit, we can do that, but maybe this is more fun. And by sophomore year, we were toast. We were done. That was where we were heading. We're like, we're going out. Now, I will tell you, for me, it actually started earlier.
Okay.
The writing, the whatever. I came to Los Angeles. I said upstate New York. I lived in Rochester, New York. Okay. Rochester, New York is like, here we have, 180 foot tall single strand things that we call trees. Yes. There they have snow like that. So you walk out your door in the wintertime and you look up and you see snow. It's not falling, it's landed. It's like you're a kid and snow is as tall as you are. Okay. And we used to go to still the fucking school bus would come and pick you up and take you to school. So it's not like, I mean, yes, there were snow days, but there were times when you couldn't.
You were going. They weren't making it easy.
You would go to school. And so one year, my dad was a doctor. He was a visiting professor in Irvine for like, I think 3 months, 2-3 months in January, February, March. Yeah. And he was out in Irvine and living in Laguna. Okay. And we flew out on February break, so flying out of the 180-foot tall snow, right, and landing in California as a 14-year-old boy. Wow. Oh, wow. Right? So I'm covered in a parka in my life, and every human being is covered in a parka, and I haven't seen a girl in a right. I haven't seen it right. And I land in Los Angeles, and my mother said, like, my eyes go wide, and she was like, we didn't know if we were going to get you back on the plane. Wow. So it's beautiful. It's sunny. I already love like watching TV. I'm TV obsessed. I'm movie obsessed. All of that shit. And land here. We go to Universal Studios. We go to and we go to Laguna Beach, and I'm like, and it's February, and there's nice people in bathing suits on the beach, and I'm boogie boarding and body surfing, and like they literally didn't like. I was in love with this place from the minute I got here. We drove up and down Wilshire looking for ice cream at Blum's at the old Bullocks Wilshire, right, and we went to. iMagnon. It was iMagnon. Right. And we went to, and had this ridiculous experience at iMagnon because we went to the Beverly Hills iMagnon and they didn't have the ice cream, and we wanted to go to the ice cream. And they're like, oh, this is the Beverly Hills iMagnon. It was like being in the Beverly Hillbillies, right? So I was hooked. We came back, and then I went back to Rochester, and then we went from Rochester moved to Connecticut a few years later. Yeah. But I never lost this thing in my mind that was like, this is a place, like I want to be there. And I didn't know, again, so I went to school thinking I was going to be a veterinarian. But when these pieces started to line up, in college, we sort of decided, hey, we're going to come out to LA and give this thing a try.
Wow.
So there's a little bit of the trail to the beginning.
That's a great origin story right there. You hit a lot of notes. I do want to say something kind of irrelevant, but I got to bring it up because you sparked a memory for me. Escargot I first had for the first time in Washington, D.C. when I was 8 years old with my parents and grandparents on my mom's side. Mm-hmm. And I just remember like they were all shocked that I was like eating it at the table. But to your point, all my recollection was like the garlic butter
and bread.
And, you know, like kind of into sushis, like the textures in that same like ballpark and everything. So that's interesting. Veterinarian, I'm going to touch on this and then move on real quick. You love pets? You loved animals? Were you a pet guy? Where was that coming from?
All of it. I mean, I was the dinosaur fascinated kid.
Yes.
I was but also all of it.
Yeah.
Birds, reptiles, fish.
Yeah.
Mammals. Cats, dogs, rats, rabbits, anything, horses.
So of your Wheel of Fortune, you ended up with 2. Did you ever do anything animal-wise?
In my life, I did. Look, I worked in pet stores in high school.
Okay. Let's go back to, what was the writing partner's name? Jeff Greenstein. Greenstein. Okay. You guys are at Tufts. You're 2 New England kids. You have this love for Los Angeles, at least percolating in the back of your head because you'd been out there. You guys... were writing partners at the time? How did the writing start? So you're a TV guy, shows?
Yeah. So after graduation, I spent about another year in Boston.
But you did no writing in Boston, and you and Jeff weren't a partnership of any kind at that point.
We started like an arts fraternity. They also had a program where you could create houses around what they called culture houses.
Okay.
And it could be anything from vegetarianism to, in our case, it was art. And we put together this arts house. We had a gallery in the house. We did a calendar for the school newspaper because there was no arts calendar.
Okay.
So we coordinated that. We ran 2 film series, which I ran. And then we did different things. We sponsored outside artists to come in and do stuff on campus, performances, whatever.
Yeah.
And kind of were, and it was really an excuse to live in a cool dorm and
that's pretty sweet.
And
cultural house.
And a way to do that without having to join an existing frat and let somebody else tell you what you had to do.
Some need to offer for a university, yeah.
So it was cool. It's still around. We started this thing in 1980, 81, and it's still going.
That's awesome. That's a legacy right there.
Yeah, so that's really cool.
So then you graduate, or you and Jeff, you graduate, so he's beelining out to LA.
So he moved out in November of that year after we graduated and sort of started trying to get himself into something. He wound up doing temporary jobs and doing whatever. And I came out the following May, came out Memorial Day weekend. And
your parents were like, there he goes. We knew it.
They knew it. They actually, I was going to say, they said like no college west of the Rockies. That was my deal with them. They were paying for school, so they got to say at least something. So you can go anywhere as long as it's east of the Rockies. And I'm like, literally the day I graduate, I'm like, I'm heading. I mean, it was a year. It was a year. I was like, "Fuck you, I'm out."
Yeah.
So they were super supportive, but they wanted
as much of Jeff as they could.
They wanted me close by, but they knew they were losing me, and they knew where it was going to be.
So you head out Memorial Day of the following year.
We had amassed, I think, 12 connections. We called them, and they ranged from like Steve Tisch, big dude, right? Like to and Daniel Selznick, who was a producer, who was David O. Selznick.
How were you amassing these connections?
It was 2 of them had people like Steve Tisch had a relationship at Tufts. Daniel Selznick had shown up at Tufts. My dad knew Peter Bart, who Peter Bart was former head of production at Paramount, who had become the publisher or editor-in-chief at Variety.
Wow.
So he had gone to college with my dad. So we had these people, and we said, we've got our connections. We're going to get jobs, and we're going to get hooked up. We got here, and we went and talked to all these connections.
Yeah.
And nothing happened. And now we're basically at zero. And his girlfriend at the time was working at a temp agency as a placement officer. Yeah, I've been through some temp agencies in my day. And so we were doing temp work and doing it. I worked on an AFI film. Okay. I helped with props and costumes and set.
And this is why you're living in Koreatown.
So living.
What was your first impression of living in Los Angeles?
So we moved. I lived at Mariposa, so just one block off Normandy and 2 blocks up north of Wilshire.
Wow.
Block and a half north
in the
of Wilshire.
early 80s, right?
In the early 80s.
Okay.
And at that point, that mid-Wilshire area was like the most ethnically diverse neighborhood, I believe, in the world. It was certainly the most ethnically diverse neighborhood in the country.
Right.
In that you had meaningful populations from all over.
Yes.
It's changed now. It wasn't overwhelmingly Korean immigrants or Korean, and it wasn't overwhelmingly Latin American at that point. Yeah. Also, there was like an African community in there. And we know this about LA too, that there's no monolithic communities of it's not like even the Mexican immigrant community is one thing here.
Yeah.
And so you had
diversity here.
No, and fantastic. And so we're in this incredible space.
So hold on, just a real note. Boston, and I'm saying this, is known in some circles as a racist city, but it's also still a segregated city. And it's been, you mentioned monolithic, but it's known as one of the most segregated major American cities, at least not in the South, let's say. Was there any sort of culture shock? And I know you're university educated, you're an intelligent, experienced guy, or was it just like you dive in, you're like, oh, let's fucking go. I love this pastiche of people and of culture.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was that. Between having been in DC, and my dad's a pretty international dude in his approach to the world. My mom loves to travel also. So for me, that was comfortable and exciting.
Yeah.
And going to like Korean food or Chinese food in K-Town, or going to like Little Tokyo, or going to eat. Wasn't so much street tacos at the time.
Yeah.
We really had not. I mean, there were in some neighborhoods, but there were great little taquerias. Yeah. And discovering that, both like, there even like La Salsa had its 1 shop or 2 shops and they had like cheap tacos too. And they were in Beverly Hills. We went to Beverly Hills La Salsa, which always made us feel stupid and crazy, but it was like they were good and cheap, and they had a bottomless taco day, so you could go eat tacos. Dude,
that genre, the La Salsa, Baja Fresh.
No, they were just.
There's another Paquito Mas, like that genre that isn't so much widespread, but they were coming on in that era. Yeah,
totally. But so the local, and being right there, the local, on the edge of, Thai town, historic Filipino town, and having all of those communities there meant the food right there, right nearby, was insanely diverse.
Especially at that time, because LA, is always a land of these many cultures, and food was always here. But I think collectively, Los Angeles didn't really start celebrating its culinary history or its culinary offerings until really, I always go back to Jonathan Gold, starting to celebrate it.
100%.
But you're essentially growing up right when Jonathan Gold is becoming a writer and doing his tour down Pico Boulevard and telling people like, hey, food criticism and eating in general at a great restaurant doesn't only mean a white tablecloth, nice restaurant, and showing the world, eventually that LA is about all these different experiences, culinary and otherwise. And as a food guy, you didn't quite yet have the ambition. You're not like, oh, I'm going to set out to open restaurants, right? At this point in your life.
No, not at all.
But you still were food oriented with your experiences growing up. You were really indulging and getting into it. And how much was food a part of your LA upbringing?
Oh, I mean, it was always like from day one, exploring what the city's food had to offer.
Super cool.
Before Food TV, before Jonathan Gold. I mean, Jonathan Gold was incredible because here was a guy who was talking about the LA I was seeing, but hadn't articulated. Like, I didn't say to anybody, oh, here's what's great about LA. It's he put to words this thing and put in press what I found so brilliant. I would take people who came out here. We would go, we'd do the sort of landmarks tour, but I would also take them to the little taco shop or the ramen spot or the whatever. sushi was, of course, here then already. It was exploding here, but hadn't many other places in the country.
I think it's worth re-emphasizing that, listen, LA was considered a laughing stock, let's call it, by the major media and the major culinary media. LA was something of a laughing stock with our restaurants and strip malls that important quote unquote important culinary people couldn't wrap their heads around. And again, even as late as the 2000s, Michelin wouldn't put out a guide in Los Angeles because it wasn't like significant enough of culinary state. But it's funny, but the people that know and that understood the experience, like that's something. So that's sort of a foreshadowing for what ended up being the latest phase of your career.
Thank you. Absolutely. It really was. And that's always sort of been in my soul in some way, is like when I was in New Haven, Connecticut, which is where my family still is, we moved there when I was 15. There was a little, and I didn't find this place until I was in like my senior year of high school, and me finding it like I discovered it. I didn't discover it. Somebody showed it to me, of course, and it had been there for years. There's a place called the Forbes Deli. Okay. And the Forbes Deli was out on Forbes Avenue, which is across the bridge in New Haven, like out of downtown in a very, very Italian neighborhood, where a Jewish kid like myself might expect to get beat up on occasion, and probably did. I didn't, but whatever. And whatever. People were, New Haven has a little that Boston thing going on too, right? Where where your neighborhood is your spot and your territory is your territory, and you stay in there is kind of important. Yeah. But Forbes Deli was this little bodega sandwich shop that had unbelievable cheesesteaks tucked in the back of a tiny like convenience store, grocery store in this part of town that you didn't go to a ton if you were a white kid from the other suburbs, and or a white Jewish kid from the other suburbs. Let's be where it was, but like that thing, like once I tasted that, like it closed 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I still drive by it hoping that it's still there. And I know that it's not. And I drive around looking for it, hoping that I'm wrong. And and I will go back literally just hoping that it's when I go to see family or go whatever. Yeah. And so it has this discovery, this thing that you do where you go to a place that's in a neighborhood that you don't know, but you know that there's a spot, or somebody tells you that there's a spot, or you look around till you find the spot. That thing, and that's what Jonathan Gold said about LA and his work showed, was in these neighborhoods, in these corners, in these strip malls, somebody is cooking with heart and soul and whatever, and it's a place that you do not expect. And so that stealthy quality of LA is where food, there's great restaurants by trained chefs and by whatever, but there's great food on the street and there's great food in the strip malls.
That brings two thoughts to my head. Number one, were you exploring the LA deli scene at that point? Because that at least was one thing that LA was, I don't want to say known for, but at least had the respect. There were still Langers, there were still Brents, there's still Arts, there's...
it was sort of Langers, Brents, Brents, Cantors, Arts, and Jerry's. Oh, yeah.
Right? Oh,
right. Boy. It's kind of
Jerry's
that,
a little
that
different.
Five.
Yeah. But they were big.
They were big, and and there were two of them. There was one over the hill and one in the valley. And the LA deli scene. I mean, I lived behind Cantors, so after my second
when
spot
Cantors
here
was in its prime.
My second spot here, I moved from Mid-Wilshire to Fairfax, and I lived literally like there was a gate at the back of our apartment building property to the alley behind the parking lot at Cantors.
Oh, come on.
So, and we're talking about now 1986 to basically 1989 was when I was there on Hayworth. And Fairfax and Cantors and that area was also sort of the heart of late night rock and roll LA.
Right it was, man. Red Hot Chili Peppers started right down the street, Guns N' Roses. Kibitz Room it was called, right? At Cantors?
Kibitz Room. Yeah. So I had drinks and dinner with the Chili Peppers on a couple of occasions.
Was the prime era.
I mean, I didn't know them well. We hung out a little bit. I hung out with people who who were, so my roommate's sister was in this band Mary's Danish, which was an LA institution briefly, and playing Raji's and Atomic Cafe, and playing all the sort of the scene in that era, pre-cell phone, right? So you can't, right? And underground clubs and all that stuff's going on. So we're doing some of that. But like late night cantors was the thing, and Okie Dog up north, and Genghis Cohen,
Okie Dog, yeah.
And that little strip was like where, maybe aside from Toy up on Sunset, where like the LA music scene landed after the clubs. And that was really cool. And that was that was my backyard deli. Whew. So Cantor's was my spot because of that. And because I was there, and because also that late night scene was not something that was happening anywhere else.
And that's incredible, because that really was LA history right there. I mean, absolute important LA history musically and otherwise.
I mean, that's solid, like second gen punk, right? And
just specifically with Cantors, look, Under the Bridge and Welcome to the Jungle were two of the top 5 LA songs, by the way. And a lot of people may not realize Welcome to the Jungle is absolutely about Axl Rose biographical coming to Los Angeles. So that was plugging a former podcast episode, 2 of my top 5 LA songs. But that was a great time for you to be developing. And again, just to focus a little bit on the food, because skipping ahead, and we're going to get more on this, but Oi Bar is a Japanese Jewish restaurant, of which I only know of one, that is Oi Bar. But the Jewish influence, and that's why I kind of asked about the delis in Los Angeles. And look, it's not a deli. To be clear, Oi Bar is not serving you like a fat pastrami sandwich on rye, although you have kind of, the takes and interpretations, and that's more Jeff's Table sort of oriented.
Totally. So when I describe Oi Bar, and we can put that frame out there, I always say it's like part Jewish, a little East Coast, and a lot of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And yes, there is a strong Japanese component.
Yeah.
You're sitting next to a guy who ate sushi it's gone now, but at a spot in Beverly Hills that was one of the best sushi restaurants I've ever been to. I probably ate for between 5 and 7 years, between 3 and 5 times a week.
What was it called?
Sushi.
Okay.
So Sushi Beverly Hills was a place that people would actually fly in from Japan to go to, because he was a total like Nozawa style Japanese chauvinist. He briefly had like a California roll on his menu, and it killed him, so he took it off. Like he briefly served, like people told him he had to serve the Beverly Hills population, and eventually he just said, he didn't say the words, but he just said fuck that. And he just said like people would say, do you have California roll? And his answer would be sushi.
Wow.
And so anyway, but so Japanese, and I learned by sitting across from him. I learned by talking about food from him. He would share, like he would do this wonderful thing with me. I would come in, and my favorite way to eat in the world is omakase style.
Yes.
Is to go into a restaurant, whatever it is, and to say, serve me what you have that you want to serve me. Please give me the food that you love. And so I started to develop this deeper appreciation for the style. And the food is so beautifully simple. Yeah. It's brutal. Simple food is way harder to do well. So anyway.
But the Japanese do it beautifully, by the way. Beautifully.
But so yeah. And I've traveled a little bit. I've been to Japan. I've had that good fortune in my life, thanks to the other part of my experience that pays for some of that stuff.
Which we're circling back on very soon. Yes.
But there's lots of little other flavor layers in there, in what we do at Oi Bar. What I do at Jeff's Table, there's Chinese food. When I talk about the way I think about food, I describe it as that I was the kind of Jewish kid that didn't know that Chinese food wasn't part of my cultural tradition.
Right. It is part of the Jewish cultural tradition, but
pretty much every week, my parents would take me when we were in DC, and we would go to like one of the 2 good Chinese restaurants at the time, And
it was our Christmas tradition as a Jewish family was Chinese food.
Yeah, Chinese food and movies, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, go, right? It's wide open. Nobody's there.
Yeah.
What's open? Chinese food is open because they don't care either. Right. So, whatever. Right. And yeah, so, but my parents were not, my mom grew up in New England. My dad grew up in a non-religious Jewish house, so they weren't kosher. He ate bacon and he ate seafood. And my mom grew up in Boston, and her dad introduced me to fried shrimp when I was little. So they ate all kinds of stuff that is not in the Jewish kosher world. Right. Because they lived a much more assimilated life. My dad was from the Midwest, from Cleveland, Ohio, and Erie, Pennsylvania. Okay. And yeah, so all of that food comfort, my dad had traveled a bunch, like I said, especially to Europe. And so all of that was sort of there in me.
Okay, let's get back, because I want to know with the development. So you and the other Jeff have your dozen contacts who you'd reached out to that ended up with nothing. You're doing some temp work, although getting a little bit of exposure in the film world, at least on the auxiliary side.
Right.
When did that turn into actually writing, and what was your big break?
So we immediately, when I landed in LA, which was, like I said, a few months after, the deal was we were going to start writing, because it was the only thing we could do that we had control over ourselves. Like you could go ask for jobs, but writing we could do. So we decided, look, we could go to film school or try to go to film school or whatever and pay tens of thousands of dollars to learn to do something, or we could try learning it by doing it and maybe work whatever, but like try. And so we set about writing some feature screenplays, and it's the LA dream right there. The first one we wrote, we called Temporary Insanity. It was, in fact, about working at a temporary agency and then running a weird temporary agency and then getting involved in some crime solving and it was this weird ass comedy about two guys who were temp workers who uncovered a crime ring. And
okay.
Because, it's a movie and it was terrible. And
but you're doing it though.
We're doing it. We're doing it. And there was a lot of good writing in the stage directions and not a lot of great dialogue. And I don't know if you know this, but stage directions don't show up on the screen. So, so we turned it over to some people, and our friends said, "Wow, it sounds like you." And then that was not really reassuring. And the people that we handed it to some agents who said, "We would like to read the next thing that you write," which was nice.
Yeah,
right? That was great.
It's not a closed door.
But it wasn't like, I was walking around at that time and I think I had a temp job at a production company or something at some point in there. And I think I had the Daily Variety or Hollywood Reporter, and it had the real estate section in the back where it shows you the houses in the hills for whatever, $1 million at that time.
Yeah, $1 million house was $1 million
house. It was a hell of a house at that point in time. And then Shane Black, right? Screenwriter Shane Black was selling movies for $1 million. I'm like, oh, all I got to do is, it was 1-to-1. I'm like, I sell one script, I buy that house. I'm set. That did not happen, by the way. But my adolescent
ambition and a goal.
Young man's brain is taking me there. And it certainly keeps you working. So we wrote the script. It was not well received, really. I mean, my wife says you can die of encouragement in this town, which is certainly a truth.
Wow, that's a great mantra.
But without it, I would have stopped. I'm pretty driven, but we wrote another one, and here and there we're getting a little traction here or there. And during this process, I got a temp job at ABC.
Okay.
In Century City. At the time, the building that was in is now gone, and that just like the Brown Derby. But they closed my department down. It was so redundant. The business discovered that my department was as redundant as it seemed to be to me. And for some reason, I wound up with a job in. They had to offer me a job. I was a union guy. I was a Teamster. My secretarial position was a Teamster job, so they had to offer me that. And the job they offered me was in comedy series programming. Okay. As a secretary. And so I went from these contracts being on my desk to TV scripts
Okay.
on my desk,
Much better
working
for a writer.
working for somebody who was reading and supervising, I think, 8 shows or something at a time, and I came home one day to facing that giant thick screenplay that we were trying to write with a half-hour TV comedy. And always liked TV comedy scripts, and I said, "Dude, do you think?" Maybe we should write like they need people to write this stuff all the time. Maybe we should write something shorter.
Okay, right.
Like we could probably do this faster.
Yep.
And I have people who read them all the time who could read them also. So like we have access. And so we started writing some TV scripts.
There you go.
And
creating of existing shows or creating your own?
No, first thing was like specs of existing shows.
Okay.
We did write. So we wrote. Wow, I don't even remember what all those specs were. We wrote a Family Ties.
Yes.
It was on the air. We wrote there was a Steven Spielberg series called Amazing Stories, and we wrote an Amazing Stories spec, which was a sort of like sci-fi anthology series, like a Twilight Zone kind of thing.
Stephen King, yeah.
And we wrote a handful of things,
and they were coming out. So they were coming out,
and they were coming out much more quickly.
Yeah.
And I had people, and I showed them to one of the people that I worked with, like basically a year or so older than I was, but actually had a real job,
some input, yeah.
And she showed it. I didn't show it to my boss, but she showed it to my boss and said, "Hey, here's a script these guys wrote, and it's pretty good." And she liked it. She gave us some notes. We did a rewrite on it based on my boss's notes. And she gave it to some friends of hers who were running a sitcom, Rob Sternan and Prue Fraser, who coincidentally also were Tufts grads.
Oh, okay.
And they liked it. And we got our first episode of television. Was an outside script on a show called The Charmings.
So give me, what was the into Friends? Yeah.
So we had done a few episodes of outside script writing, and then the 1988 writer's strike hit. So we were just getting momentum, and the 88 writer's strike hit, and which was horrifying and fantastic all at the same time. We didn't really know. On the one hand, we are not writing, not working. Our momentum is completely stopped. On the other hand, we're walking the picket line with like James L. Brooks and like these heroes.
Sweet.
And it wasn't people like that, but we did also walk the picket lines with some people who were a nudge down the second in commands on some shows.
A little bit more accessible.
And some of them, when we came back from that strike in 88, there was no work. There was no work for young writers. Right. It was all for people who had, and there was too much need from the writers who had big careers to get back into it, and they were all helping each other out, and made a lot of sense, but it was really disheartening. And December of 1989, we're pretty much done. Yeah. We are at the point where I'm thinking maybe I'll get I want to do something with my life, and I feel like this is not going to be it.
Looking at that veterinary school again?
Yeah, I was actually thinking of whatever. I don't know. I was going to go get thinking about becoming a therapist or something.
Wow.
I guess I like to talk. I don't know what that is.
Shit.
But so I didn't know what I was doing, but I was starting to look at graduate schools in something.
Wow.
I might have gotten back to being a veterinarian, but I don't know. And Greenstein was he was going to move out of LA. I don't know. He was going to go back to Atlanta, to Atlanta where he grew up, and we really didn't know. He used to say he's going to go be a chicken farmer. He has no interest in that. It was just a metaphor. Yeah. And then we got a phone call about going in to meet with some people on a show for HBO. We were represented by agents at the time. We were at ICM, so it wasn't like we were no, but there was no work. Okay. And we got this late phone call about meeting with some people about a show called Dream On. and they had shot a pilot. It was a show coming out of Universal Studios, and they had this large library of vintage TV, mostly anthology TV and stuff like that, from like the black and white, all black and white TV. And the idea was to use that footage for something because it was theoretically free legally. They had there were no residuals to be paid on. There was all kinds of stuff. It was sort of royalty free. The show was great. We had this great meeting with these people, but then radio silence went away. I actually went home to Connecticut, and I was thinking about, it was for the holidays, so it was Christmas time. And I didn't know, but I was talking with my parents about potentially moving back east.
Damn. Okay.
And New Year's Eve day, we got a phone call that they wanted us on the show. And so this was for HBO. This was one of the first regular series that they did. They had a show called First and 10, and they did the Larry Sanders Show around the same time that
Larry
we
Sanders
were
was
on.
dope. Gary Shandling,
Early Gary Shandling came on a year after we did. But so we did this show for HBO, and it was the first really successful wave of comedies that they did, like that got both notoriety and community support. And no shock, right? It's Kaufman and Crane who would go on to create Friends.
Yeah.
And we spent 6 seasons on Dream On. Yeah. They had become consultants on the last couple of seasons that we were involved because they were off developing other stuff. And during that final year, that 6th year, we were at Universal, which is where Dream On was being done, and they were over at Warner Brothers, and they sent us these 2 scripts that they were working on to look at, and one of them was Friends.
So with Friends, did you know right away that this was going to be something big?
We knew we really liked it. We didn't know at all how big.
Yeah.
My wife was on a plane, and they showed a preview of Friends. Like, we had done some little promos.
Yeah.
And she was sitting next to a young woman in her late 20s, early 30s, and they watched this promo for Friends come up.
Yeah.
This was before the show had aired. And she came off the plane and said, "Your show's going to be a hit." And I said, "How do you know?" She said, "Well, I was sitting next to this woman, and we turned the show on. The promo came on, and this woman said, just everyday human, just said, I'm gonna like that show. That show is so my life."
Yeah.
And she knew it. She knew before we knew. And she was right. And that's what. And there was a lot more to it than that, obviously.
So right away, you're feeling good about that. You're like, okay, it's a little encouragement, even though you can die from encouragement. But the show's like primed to be a hit, putting in that lineup, the Thursday night lineup, got some serious people on it. Now you have some bona fides. Kaufman and Crane obviously have the reputation. Show starts airing. And I don't know, off the bat, was it a hit? How were the ratings? What was the
ratings were very solid from the beginning.
Yeah.
And it just kept growing.
Yeah. Was it life-changing for you?
Totally.
So what in your life in regard to LA, or obviously you're not thinking about moving back to Connecticut anymore at that point. So what had happened in Jeff's life at this point? Now that you're on part with this show that is a cultural phenomenon.
So coming from the kid who was going to move back to Connecticut, well, I was married and had about to have a kid, and my daughter was born in 93, so during that time. But there's this thing that happens when you work on a hit show, when you work on whatever, which is that you become noticeably relevant within the entertainment community. And it's both exciting but also terrifying, because you start to think that that's something that can go away, and if you're me, you do, because in most comedy writers, I think, have that darkness in them. So you start thinking, like, that's not going to last. That's not going to whatever. I can't believe it. So on the one hand, you're like, fuck yeah, finally, and on the other hand, and it wasn't our show also. So that one, like, we felt like, look, there's stuff. Well. There's a lot of personal stuff that goes into good writing,
Yeah.
right? You put yourself into those episodes.
Of course, in any art form, man.
We were pitching around on that first Friends Thanksgiving episode, the one where Underdog gets away, the one where the balloon, the underdog balloon gets away, and Monica's trying to make Thanksgiving for everybody. And this is really Rachel's first Thanksgiving away from her family. And I always say, and we got Emmy nominated for that episode. So that was a big deal in my life. But a bigger deal is that I am two of the characters in that episode. So I am Monica. Okay. Big shock. I mean, I don't look like Monica. She's way cuter than me.
Right.
But I'm the guy who cooks Thanksgiving. I cook Thanksgiving for friends starting in college.
Okay.
Before we would break for Thanksgiving, we had Friendsgiving. We didn't call it that, but we did it. It became called that because of that show. And because of that thing, but the idea that you would have Thanksgiving with your friends, and that was meaningful, right?
Yeah.
That was the other thing, right? It wasn't just a meal. It was, and when Kaufman and Crane created that show, the theme was, it's the time of your life where your friends are your family, right? Where you're in between the family that raised you and the family that you're going to raise, but you're not without family. Right. Your friends are your family. And that had not really been identified as a phenomenon, and that's what that is. So anyway, that episode, I'm that person. I cook what people want. I want to make people happy. So Monica's making 3 different kinds of potatoes. Like she's trying to make everybody happy with her food. That falls apart. I'm also Chandler. My parents, in that episode, Chandler, we find out that Chandler's parents got divorced at Thanksgiving, which is why he hates Thanksgiving. My parents didn't get divorced, but they announced their divorce. They announced they were separating at Thanksgiving when I was in college. And we were looking for a story, and Greenstein says, well, we could use your Thanksgiving story. And I'm like, what? And I'm like I don't remember that I have a Thanksgiving story.
Right.
And he's like, well, we could do a thing where Chandler, why would somebody hate Thanksgiving? This is what we're trying to come up with. He's like, well, you use your story. Like, I love Thanksgiving, so I don't know.
Yeah, it didn't click like that for you. Yeah.
But I didn't even think, he's like, the one where your parents announce that they're getting divorced at Thanksgiving. I'm like, oh, fuck, yeah, we could use that. That's a really, so that story is my story.
Wow.
The rest of Chandler's family life is not my family life, but that specific, I was 20 years old, and my parents told us.
Man, so that's very personal, and that's why it works, and that's why it's relatable, because it's believable, and people can see that. And
you have to have that ownership in there. So that year was all of this pouring our personal lives and ourself into, and it remains so. Look, almost any writing does, but that show really had that.
Food. I'm going to segue into that. So
Sure.
You were cooking Thanksgiving, and again, a pioneer of Friendsgiving, let's call it, with that, which is pretty significant in itself. All the while you're cooking, you're in your Hollywood phase, TV writing. I know that there was a film in there, TV movie at the very least. But when did you make the transition? Because I know that somewhere along the line, you went from writing for TV and producing to staging in restaurants. Mm-hmm. Inc., Michael Vittaggio, which was one of the first nice restaurants. I think I have the business card of Inc. up right there. I have the Inc. business card right up there. And then a restaurant in Napa, correct? Mm-hmm. So how did that transition occur from the TV to food? Two of the most highest profile yet most difficult industries anywhere, especially in LA.
So I've always eaten. I've cooked my whole life since I was 5 and you're 7 years old or something. My mom said, I didn't like what she was having for dinner. She said, you can make yourself some eggs. And it sort of started there. And it was not just about I think in that moment, and she didn't just say it and then say, fuck you, go do it. She showed me how. And I think I learned not only that I could make something that I like to eat, but also that I had some say in what my world was like a little bit of control over that. And that was really something. So I've always cooked. I've always used it as a creative outlet as well as reinforcement. And I like the beauty of it is if you don't really fuck them up, you can eat your mistakes along the way. So, so you can learn, and if you're not terrible, you can learn, and it's delicious, or it's at least edible. It's not always. I fuck some stuff up beyond that, I got to tell you, but I've always done, like I did like Super Bowl parties inspired from 1986, I think, or 80. I started doing Super Bowl parties where I would do menus inspired by the teams.
Shit. Okay.
Something
That's
where,
awesome.
okay, so like there's a Chicago something, a New England something, there's a whatever.
Fantastic.
And it was and you know, so
you take the mayor's betting. I don't even know if they still do this, but mayors used to like bet.
Yeah, bet, sure.
Yeah.
So you have to eat 200 Chicago dogs.
There
you have to eat clam chowder until you throw up, right? But I'd make chowder and Chicago dogs and not try to make people not throw up. And dinner parties and stuff like that, kind of all along the way. But Super Bowl really was the big thing. I did some catering for friends and stuff like that, help people out. This is while I was a writer, and I would kind of like the staging at Inc. happened while I was still writing. It didn't happen as a part of a career shift. It was just something like people know I love to cook, so I got to work in a restaurant. My daughter got me a one-day hookup with Michael Voltaggio, and I went in for a day, and at the end of the day, the guy who was running the restaurant, Cole Dickinson, said, you know, like, come back as often as you want. And I fucked some shit up that day too, so it was really gracious of him to do that. But I started doing like a once or twice a week, like go in and work service and whatever at the restaurant. I worked with with Mei Lin was there at the time. Like there's a bunch of people who came out of that time who are big
that was the hottest
now.
and one of the best restaurants in LA for a little bit.
I just saw Michael yesterday. He's like, that was a brilliant restaurant and lovely, and doing these things where he was doing magic but also making food that tasted good, like weird ass food that like makes you remember it and makes food taste good. He's amazing like that. And
that's when LA was finally getting the recognition too as the culinary city, and he was kind of a darling of the moment. Absolutely.
Totally. And so I was doing that stuff, and I was growing increasingly frustrated with the production selling. You know, I was an old guy. I was in my 50s, and I didn't have a hit show on the air. And as a guy in my 50s without a hit show on the air, and too much, I didn't do a ton of working for other people after I did Friends. Like I didn't do a ton of being on other people's shows. So I didn't have whatever. I wound up doing a lot of development and a lot of stuff like that. So I didn't have a lot of people who said, you know, who will really help me in the room is Jeff. Yeah. I was more the guy who was hiring people for a long time. Right. And I'm a pain in the ass. So I like don't keep my opinions to myself, and I don't always pitch the answer. I sometimes pitch the question, and people don't always like that. So I was not working as much as I would have liked to. I was finding it frustrating, and the industry was tired with me. And my wife sat down with me one day and said, if you're going to do something in food, you should do it while you can still stand up.
Fuck. Right.
And I started doing pop-ups, and I did a pop-up. I actually, Greenstein, my writing partner, his girlfriend at the time was doing stand-up at the Old Oyster House Saloon.
Yes.
On Moore Park and Whitsett in Studio City on Monday nights. And he said, you know, they have a kitchen there that they don't do anything with. I think they're frying shit from Costco.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
They were like, the bartenders would run into the back and fry shit just so that they had something. And people were disappointed with the food all the time. I bet you could do something there.
Right.
And I talked to Grant, who was the manager at the time. He connected me through his girlfriend. And I went and I started doing these pop-ups, and I called them Jeff's Table because I needed a name. And my friend said, you need a name, you need a brand. And I had a table logo from something else that I had done. Right. And so I was like, fuck, oh, Jeff's Table, haha, that's like Chef's Table, it's a pun. And I kind of went with that. And like things were just like, it was just like, just choose and go, right? Just go, just choose and go. It's like, so, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do this. I'll do stuff on Monday nights. So I started doing like bar food, right? I'm in a bar, I'll do bar food. I'll do like, I don't know, I did like some wings, and I did a pastrami salad. I've made pastrami for like 20 years off and on, like here and there. Like, so I know I could do that. I made my own rye bread. So like, I like doing all of it. So I did that. And Peter, who's the owner of that space, was there on one of those Monday nights, like 5 Mondays in or something like that. Yeah. And he said, hey dude, this is really good. I just bought a little bodega in Highland Park that has a sandwich shop in back, right? Forbes Deli.
Yep, going back,
right?
circling back to your New Haven. Yep.
And he's like, got a sandwich shop in back. Do you want to run that? And I'm like, listen, just so you know, the number of days I've run restaurants, I was here like 6 Mondays.
Right.
He said, you'll figure it out.
Right.
And I went over and looked at the spot in Highland Park, and it's the Forbes Deli. It's like this little spot in the back of it's hidden. So we tore the wall down.
Yeah.
And so my deal was like, no, I love it. It's hidden enough, right? We're not going to put up big signs. We're not going to do whatever. Yeah. And so Jeff's Table started then. That was 6.5 years ago.
Started, huh? And that's right in the back of Flask. Flask is the store now. Was it always Flask?
Flask.
When it first started?
Well, it was Flask when I started. That's his business.
Tell them the streets. What are streets over there?
Avenue 59 in Figueroa.
Yeah, and again, like it's funny because Highland Park is one of the most, I don't want to call it controversial, but it kind of is. It's polarizing because it really is maybe at the pinnacle of the gentrification conversation, but man, it is one of my favorite neighborhoods, to be honest. And Jeff's Table is a big reason. So Jeff's Table, very limited menu. Yeah. Sandwich forward, sandwich focused.
All carry out. We have tables outside, but all carry out. It's really a grocery store.
So why sandwiches?
That's what they wanted there.
That's what and they're not just normal sandwiches, right? Like my favorite is the new OG roast beef, arugula, horseradish.
Horseradish creme fraiche, miso crusted roast beef, and onions, red onions that are pickled with shiso. So there's that Japanese component, right?
But they're so very like, and again, the Dirty Baby is another one, which is like a turkey melt, which is really good. Like I'm a fan of that. Yeah, that's a composition.
That's
sandwich,
a kitchen
right?
sinky sandwich. That's got like the whole thing in it.
Yeah, it's Dirty Baby, but the sandwiches, even though they're like they're refined and they're very elegant, and you realize, because I always, and this is before we knew each other, I'd always heard Jeff's Table. My wife is a sandwich maven. She loves sandwiches. For her birthday, where do you want to go? And we used to do like, again, the Michelin star thing, all these fancy restaurants. But now that we're older, she's like, I just want a damn good sandwich. Like, where are the best sandwiches in LA? Let's go there, you know? And shout out, she loves La Sorted's. We love Lorenzo and Beverly Hills. Uncle Polly's is fine down the street. It's pretty good, you know, but we're always on the lookout for some new sandwiches. Don Adrian Samitas in Van Nuys, different kind of, so many good sandwiches. I love a patty melt. Anyway, point is, I'm getting off table, but I'd always heard Jeff's Table. And truth is, listen, I was always like, oh, kind of gimmicky, like in the back of something. And like, this guy used to write for Friends. What does he know about cooking? You know what I mean? And then we went to Jeff's Table and we had this, and the first one I had was the pastrami Reuben. Actually, okay. So that was like my intro,
and that's the one that started it all. Okay, that's the one I was doing at the bar.
And I was like, "Fuck!" I was almost like disappointed in how good it was because I like wanted to kind of hate on it, and I was like, "No, this is good." And it's different. Sandwiches are always different, and that's what makes them kind of fun. But it is like, how would you sort of describe it? It's like I say it's refined. The way I see Jeff's Table are like these refined like sandwiches that are accessible, carry out any kind of like event or occasion that you want.
You use whatever words you want about whatever food you want. Yeah. Seriously, like I'm not a fighter about it. Like I don't mind fusion. I don't mind. There's words I don't love. Refined, I think, is a good one. People say elevated. I don't like that one because the idea then is that the food that's being made fancy was not good, and that's 99.999% of the time bullshit. Yeah. Right? Like you don't need to make Korean food elevated. You don't need to make Mexican food elevated. Correct. It's not elevated by being fancy. It's fancy. Yeah. That's cool, but it's not better because of that. It's just that. But what I want this food to be is specific. Yeah. I want it to be mine. I want it to be an expression of what I love about this thing. Okay. So if it's a turkey sandwich, like we have a yuzu kosho turkey sandwich, sliced turkey, an aioli that we make with yuzu kosho. The first yuzu kosho that we used was, yuzu kosho is chili and citrus peel and salt. It's a Japanese condiment that I'm obsessed with, that lots of chefs are obsessed with. I made my own. I have a yuzu tree in my backyard that I grew, and I peel my own yuzu, and I ferment it, and I grind it by hand, and I do whatever. Okay. That was the beginning. I can't keep up with that quantity now. I don't have a yuzu orchard. Right, but I wanted to put flavors together and things together that might be unexpected, but also would let people find something both familiar and something different. So when you taste that turkey sandwich, it's turkey avocado sandwich, but it's also got like lemon slices in it, and it's really citrus. So there's this citrus brightness. I love citrus brined poultry. Right. So I wanted to have that. I try to do that with every sandwich. The Reuben, we make our own pastrami. I make my own pastrami. Nice. One of the few places that do. RC Provisions makes almost all of the other pastrami in the city. They do a great job.
We love RC Provisions.
Oh, hell yeah. No.
They make everybody.
Yeah, no, amazing. And I've tried to work with them a couple of times, and I can't figure out a way to do it where it still feels like mine.
Yours, right.
But I love their stuff. I will go specifically to eat what they're doing. So it's not that. But I like playing this sort of connect the dots with my food.
Yeah.
And it's like when I'm eating steamed brisket, or cured meat, here's what it makes me think of. It makes me think of smoked meat from Montreal, or it makes me think of braised brisket in Chinese food. And so like our Reuben has sauerkraut that we make, my recipe, and it has our Russian dressing, which is the classic, and is not Russian dressing. It's actually chili crisp aioli, made with chili crisp that I make. And my chili crisp isn't Chinese chili crisp exclusively, it's Chinese Mexican chili crisp, because I brought smoked chili to it. So I started making it with chipotle when I made my chili crisp the first time, because I felt like, it would be neat with that smoky component, and I want to enhance that. And so I love that kind of flavor hopscotch, that kind of cultural hopscotch that tells a little bit about my story, or a little bit about, like, when I'm eating something, it makes me think of something else. Why does it make me think of something else? Well, because
it's great. It's the narrative and the emotional connection,
right.
and that's what's important.
And if LA can do this one thing, and it can do it maybe for the country, and if food can do it, and can do it for the country, for the world, for whatever, right? It's this thing. Food travels, and when we fight with each other as cultures, we still borrow each other's food, and we might have a border war going on, but we're still eating the food that we've borrowed from each other, that we've had and enjoyed and loved.
You executed perfectly. And again, it is more than just a sandwich. It's an expression of Los Angeles, really. And again, we're about wrapping up, but I just got to say, again, personally, thank you for doing what you're doing, but especially for me, for Oi Bar. I would be remiss just to at least not mention a couple dishes. The matzo ball ramen was my wife's favorite dish that we've had in LA over the last few years. She loves it. It's such a unique concept. And again, you don't say fusion, and I
don't mind fusion. Okay. I don't.
Term kind of annoys me a little bit, even though it's sometimes true. But it's such a good representation of two so important Los Angeles cultures. And you also do a thing. I don't know what it's called. Pastrami quesadilla is another good one.
Sure,
but. You call it the yaki onigiri, right?
Onigiri. So yeah, it's a grilled rice ball, Japanese rice ball, reimagined as a everything bagel with lox and cream cheese.
And you're like, this should not work. Essentially, to dumb it down, you're like sushi with lox and cream cheese. Like, you know what I mean? Like
it's like a Philly roll. Come on.
But the way you do it is just so good, so refined. And again, Oi Bar, for those that don't know, and by the way, people are knowing more and more because it's more packed, and you just opened up the patio in the backyard, and now it's going to be impossible for us to get in and get seats from now on. But it really is one of the coolest, and I've talked about it before. I'm in print in the LA Times talking about it. Oi Bar is one of the coolest and one of the best spots in Los Angeles, and I'm so glad that it's close by me. It's in Studio City, Moore Park and Whitsett. It is a dive bar of dive bars, low ceilings, dark, nothing fancy about it except for the fantastic food, the drinks, and the people that you hire are always great. Shout out to all the mixologists, bartenders there. You do a really good job. Emma, the manager, is also a filmmaker. Shout out to her. But thank you for what you do, and thanks for representing Los Angeles. And what a story, man, from producing Friends to producing some of the best food in Los Angeles. I mean, that's what it's about, man. If I may ask you, what does the future hold? at this point for you?
Don't know 100%. We sort of go a little bit day by day. For those who don't know, Oybar has a time clock on it right now. It was bought by a developer little while ago. The property was, and there is planned to put up an apartment building with no businesses in it where it is. So we have 14 months or so left on our lease. And maybe it'll extend beyond that with, who knows, with the vagaries of construction and whatnot. We will stay in our spot and celebrate the neighborhood and LA and what we do for as long as we possibly can. Yeah. And we are always looking for what's next, hidden in the back of some surprise location somewhere in the city, whether it's in a dive bar on the Moore Park or in the back of a liquor store in Highland Park or whatever it is. I would love to stay in this community. I love where we are in the valley, and so we'll see what happens and what shows up.
Well, we want you here as long as possible, and I know a lot of people are in the same boat. So when that clock comes down to where it's a little bit more imminent, even though it's still hanging over our heads, I think there's going to be a lot of community support, and we're going to do what we can. But I know it may be out of our control. But thank you so much for everything, Jeff. What a legacy. What a great story. And just really appreciate you being here. And thank you for being such a stalwart in Highland Park and Studio City, and most importantly, Los Angeles.
Thank you, man. Thanks for what you do and your celebration of LA. It really means a lot.
Thank you very much. Jeff Strauss, Oybar, Jeff's Table. Check them out. Also follow them on social media. They do a really good job there. It's just at Oybar, right?
Oybar LA.
Oybar LA, that's right. And at Jeff's Table?
And Jeff's Table, there's 3 underscores between Jeff's and Table because 1, 2, and none were taken for some reason. So
3 underscores.
It took me 3 underscores. I couldn't figure out a different way to do it.
And go back and watch those the Friends reruns wherever it's streaming right now. Catch that too. And remember, first season, especially that Thanksgiving episode, Jeff Strauss right there, autobiographical. All right, y'all. It's been a minute.